What's up guys? Welcome to AnimeKouhai. If you'd like to help me out, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel.
They both agreed without a second thought.
Of course. If I could get a good slash in with my sword, I'd have won this long ago. But he's a defensive specialist, and it's incredibly annoying.
Benimaru must have been prepared to keep fighting like this for a long while to come, in order to keep himself from losing. Just keep your eyes on the prize, don't let your opponent's moves faze you. Diablo and Xian were bound to return sooner or later, and they could go on the counterattack then. That's my samurai general, alright, calm no matter the situation and totally reliable.
I believe in you, too, Rimuru. I wanna make up for that mistake, so if you have a winning plan, I'm game for it, no matter what.
Chloe was up for this, too. Unlike Benimaru, her fight was one she could have won if she wasn't in such a hurry. Absolute Severance could have penetrated Jiwoo's defenses, and in a one-on-one battle, the assassin would have been no match for her. Still, this was a good lesson for her. Now we all knew how inexperienced she was with her ultimate skill, but that was something she could work on in the future. I'm sure that's gonna work itself out with practice, so for now, I had to focus on ending this battle.
Okay, here's the deal. I want to get Benimaru and I connected with a soul corridor. That way, I can lend him some of my powers.
I'd be glad to borrow them. It's somewhat embarrassing to ask for your help here, Sir Rimuru, but anything beats being defeated. I promise I will bring you victory.
Benimaru gladly agreed. That was typical of him, practicality always came ahead of pride. Besides, if our opponents were tapping into borrowed power, too, I didn't see any reason to be ashamed of it. Pound for pound, Benimaru was definitely the better fighter anyway. With that in mind, I applied Absolute Severance to Benimaru's sword. This boasts pretty much the same performance as Chloe has access to. It's essentially the reverse of Absolute Defense, so both might be cancelled out when clashed against each other, but against Bernie, this ought to work well enough. So that took care of Benimaru. Now for Chloe.
Chloe, Chronoa, listen to me. If you can keep on buying time for us, Benimaru's gonna beat Bernie, I promise. After that, here's how you'll deal with Jiwoo.
For her, we'd take the opposite pattern. Chloe was back in adult form, but far from her usual self strength-wise. It was better to take a safe approach with her to ensure we could seal the deal. She merely had to survive until Benimaru won, and all would be well. That was my idea, but…
Whoa, wait a minute. I'm not about to lose here, or anything. If it's one-on-one, I'm positive we can win.
She's right, Rimuru. Yog-Sothoth kind of fell through our fingers there, but if we get serious with this battle, we're not gonna lose.
Chloe and her alter ego were both eager enough. I expected that from them, so I was hardly surprised. So I decided to make another suggestion.
Okay, then I have one condition.
What?
Use Yog-Sothoth one more time. I want this victory to be perfect for you.
Huh?
Like, you can stop time for a really tiny little bit, but it's too short to work on Jiwoo, right?
It seemed to me that Chloe was in full control of her skills, as long as she didn't go all reckless with them. When I said, really tiny little bit, I couldn't tell exactly how many seconds that was, but it probably wouldn't be enough time to hunt down Jiwoo and her ultimate skill. That was why she went over the limit like she did. But next time, she ought to be just fine.
I'll help you out this time, okay? I'll help with the calculations and stuff, and you can try it again.
Well, if you say so, I'm not complaining.
You're going to open your computational domain to us? We ought to be able to control it then, definitely.
Chloe and Chronoa said yes to the offer. They looked a little anxious still, but, so was I. This was Raphael's idea, after all. Can you blame me for wondering if this would actually work? Guess I'd believe in the dude. It had to have an inkling this would work out, so I had to just trust Raphael and act accordingly. Then Chronoa raised another issue.
But I'm still not sure there's enough energy. I can get into combat form, but I haven't recovered enough to stop time yet. Even if your aid makes it more efficient, the current Chloe won't be able to use the skill right at all.
I was kinda wondering about that, too, actually. I knew I was planning to lend them my power and stuff, but would that suffice?
Affirmative. It is not a problem.
Good. Nice to get a firm yes there. I'm sure it's got some kind of great plan, so I'll stop bothering it for details.
That won't be a problem. If you don't have enough, I'll back you up.
Or Raphael would anyway. But it's not worth explaining everything here, so I'll just take this opportunity to look way cool instead. That was enough to secure Chronoa's agreement.
All right. I'll sign on, then. Time to show these two what they've got coming.
So we had a plan. It was time for the counterattack. Benimaru changed his offensive style. Until now he had been using a static sword stance, but after being granted absolute severance, he switched to a dynamic style. Static, or say no tachi to borrow the samurai parlance, is a sword technique where the attacker allows their opponent to make the first move, with the focus on counterattacks. In other words, you're parrying whatever comes at you instead of actively seeing chances to attack, a kind of offense-defense combo. The dynamic style, or do no tachi, concentrates more on offense than defense. You're basically trying to attack and win the day with a single strike, overwhelming your foe and never giving up the initiative. This change in styles definitely registered with Bernie. Surprised, he went on the defensive. Now the tables were turned once more, but at this point, he still looked relaxed and in control. That, however, vanished in an instant. Bernie was so in control only because he was confident, and all evidence so far backed him up, that Benimaru's sword wouldn't work against him. But all that was in the past. Failing to keep up with the flurry of slashes and strikes, Bernie left himself open, and the fatal blow was aimed right for that moment. I wasn't sure if he was gonna say, "That's crazy," or whatnot, but either way, that strike hewed straight through Bernie's torso and chopped him in half. Continuing with the same motion, he arced his sword's trajectory upward like a curving river, separating his head from the rest of his body, hence why Bernie couldn't finish that last voiced reaction before his death. Man, talk about overwhelming, Benimaru totally knocked that out of the park.
You know, if you went with that momentum from the start, you could have won easy, couldn't you?
No, if I tried to do that, I would have broken my weapon. That armor was no joke, I thought, so I tried to avoid putting too much strain on my sword. It was a very awkward way to fight for me.
That was awkward, because he sure looked pretty majestic out there. I will agree that dynamic suits him better than static though. Now I was absolutely sure Benimaru outclassed Hakuro by now. He was a better physical specimen to start with, but now his skill level was about the same as Hakuro's or higher. Once he gets serious about fighting, he's just incredible. I mean, not 1 minute after going on the counterattack, Bernie was dead. Chloe, meanwhile.
Oh, I knew we wouldn't have enough energy.
Chronoa sounded pained as she tried to trigger the skill, but right after that.
Report. There is no problem.
That calm voice was accompanied by the sound of an agonizing or at least it felt that way in my mind. What was up with that? I had the sneaking suspicion that might have been her, actually, in fact, I was sure of it. Hearing it sure made me feel depressed. It was just so pathetic. I hadn't done anything bad, exactly, but I was the one causing it. Maybe it is my fault, then? I'm gonna have to treat Chloe to some pudding and apologize to get back on her good side. But anyway, that was the end of our energy problems. The next thing I knew, the world stopped, and Jiwoo was reduced to a pile of dust. So yeah, that was how we beat Bernie and Jiwoo, but now Raphael was taking a more forlorn tone with me.
Report. The subject Bernie and the subject Jiwoo were confirmed to be alive. I had forgotten about the existence of the resurrection bracelets.
Huh? No biggie. Pretty rare for Raphael to make a careless error like that, though. In fact, this may very well be the first time ever.
Oops, I should have broken their bracelets while I had the chance.
I said.
They weren't wearing bracelets.
Yeah, I had my eye out for those, but they didn't have any on.
Oh, guess Benimaru and Chloe were being a lot more careful than I was, remembering the bracelets and checking to see if they were there. Maybe I was the careless one here. I sincerely doubted that Raphael simply overlooked them, so I guess Bernie and Jiwoo got one up on us.
About that.
Masayuki, who had been quietly watching this the whole time, suddenly spoke up.
To tell the truth,
Jinrai said for him.
we all kinda saw you as the enemy, so we never really took those bracelets of yours seriously. Like, we weren't gonna look a gift horse in the mouth or anything, but...
He flipped up one of his pants legs, and amazingly, I saw him wearing a resurrection bracelet on his ankle.
Yeah, that's the bracelet.
I said.
I know, but like, whether we trusted it or not, it's still a magical item, right? So we figured it'd work just as well no matter where you put it on. Bernie suggested it as kind of a little, rebel, thing we could do.
Apparently Bernie had anticipated this outcome enough that he took steps to address it. Benimaru was scratching his head in frustration, and Chloe was seeming pretty pouty, too. I was sure she looked disgusted under her mask. Given the situation, I really didn't think Raphael could have done anything about this. I mean, Jiwoo's barrier isolated us from the rest of the world, so we couldn't talk to Ramirez. I think I could have telepathically communicated with Veldora, but I doubt I could have explained the situation to him with much accuracy. Besides, if you thought about how much work Raphael had to do there, it was just mind-boggling how much parallel processing it was up to. Granting Benimaru absolute severance, helping Chloe, Chronoa with Yog Sothoth, maintaining my own absolute defense, analyzing Bernie's and Jiwoo's abilities. The list goes on and on. Given all that, who among us could have predicted that a bunch of idiots would put resurrection bracelets on their ankles?
Well, no helping that, I guess.
Indeed. Let's just forget about it. I've already assessed their strengths, and I'm positive I would win a rematch. If someone like me challenges them, that might be a different story. But I'm sure we can find a way.
That was Benimaru's conclusion, so he and I both decided to drop the matter. Anyway, Bernie and Jiwoo were out of the picture. Not being able to off them for good was a blunder, but Benimaru, Chloe, and I promised each other we'd forget about it, so it didn't really count, right? Masayuki and Jinrai looked pretty shocked about their friend's betrayal, but I was sure they'd do their best to recover. I thought about this as I watched them trudge back to their jobs assuaging the vampires. The war was still going on. I felt kinda bad for those two, but frankly, I didn't have time to worry about them. So I decided to let Chloe take care of them, and then Benimaru and I went back to the control center. Now the labyrinth should be free of all hostile elements. But just as I thought that the final ground battle was all that was left to handle, we discovered that a few people were in the room already.
Oh, Rimuru, you sure gave me a scare, you know. We fell out of contact.
Indeed you did. I was far from worried, of course, but I did want to complain to you about it a little. Ramirez insisted we come down here, too, so we hurried. We walked on over to check up on you.
Ramirez looked concerned. Veldora was being pompous as ever. He was currently whining about how I stole his energy out of nowhere, but it was so obvious that he was seriously worried about me. He's cute that way, isn't he? So, Raphael, can you at least ask for a bit of permission before borrowing Veldora's power?
That is behind us now, so it is not a problem.
Behind us? You haven't been using his energy on the sly for a while now, have you? If so, Veldora sure must be used to it, but either way, I've done him wrong. I'll have to get him some snacks later, and maybe a few new manga volumes, too.
Sorry I worried you guys. Still, Veldora, I can contact you from pretty much anywhere, so if I get in trouble, I'll be counting on you.
You can, Master?
Oh, that's why I told you not to worry.
That's it for this video, guys. Thank you for always watching my videos and supporting my channel. Shout out to the new members of AnimeKouhai supporters: Jackson Early, Isana Daka, Chad Vota, Smexy, Kayode De Peza, Carl Stefan Bernadal, Tank Bailey, Gareth Hashimoto, Cam, Zach Rawson. Thank you so much for helping out. I'll see you guys in the next video.